My friend, there comes a moment in every individual's life when the quiet whisper of destiny grows too loud to ignore. It calls you out of the familiar, out of the comfortable, and out of the small corner of existence where you once hid your fear. It summons you toward the greatest of all responsibilities, the duty to reinvent yourself. No one escapes this summons, for the soul that refuses to evolve begins to decay, and the mind that clings to yesterday becomes a prison guard over its own potential. Understand this truth. Your future cannot be built with the tools of your past. The version of you who created your comfort also created your limitations. The same habits that once kept you safe now keep you small. The same excuses that once felt justified now feel unbearable. This inner discomfort is not a punishment. It is the divine alarm clock of growth ringing insistently in your spirit. Growth demands that you walk away from the familiar battlefield where you have been fighting for ease, convenience, and the illusion of stability. You are not designed for mere survival. You are designed for expansion, for refinement, for the continual unfolding of your hidden genius, and that expansion requires the painful tearing away of the old identity you've outgrown. Reinvention is not an event. It is a discipline. It is the daily choice to refuse the impulses that lead you back into patterns unworthy of your destiny. It is the commitment to act from intention, not emotion, from vision, not memory, from purpose, not fear. This path will test you. It will confront you with resistance so strong you may question whether greatness is truly meant for you. But remember, resistance is the gatekeeper of your next level. Only those who persist long enough to pass through it discover the extraordinary life waiting on the other side. You must stop waiting for approval. Stop seeking permission. Stop delaying your evolution until someone else validates your readiness. The world will believe in you only after you demonstrate the courage to believe in yourself. Reinvention begins the moment you decide that stagnation is far more painful than change, and that the future version of you is worth the struggle required to meet them. Your new life is already reaching for you. Now reach back. My friend, you must grasp this fundamental truth. All meaningful transformation carries a price. The moment you decide to evolve, you awaken forces within yourself that have slept comfortably for years. Forces that do not wish to be disturbed. Your fears, your familiar habits, your old excuses, they will rise in protest. They will try to negotiate your surrender, whispering that the old way was good enough, that change is too difficult, that you should wait for a more convenient moment. But there is no convenient moment for rebirth. There is only now. The pain you feel when you attempt to grow is not a sign you are failing. It is a sign that the old self is losing its grip. Growth stretches the mind, challenges belief systems, and exposes the weakness of patterns you once defended fiercely. You must learn to distinguish between the pain of destruction and the pain of expansion. One breaks you, the other builds you. When Hill taught the principle of personal initiative, he revealed that growth demands you act in advance of approval, applause, or reassurance. You must move toward your destiny even when the emotional terrain is hostile. The individual who waits for courage before acting will never act at all, for courage is born from the action itself. This battle, the one between who you have been and who you are becoming, is fought daily. And it is your discipline that determines the outcome. Discipline is the bridge you walk from the life you know to the life you desire. It is the refusal to retreat when the past attempts to reclaim you. It is the conscious rejection of behaviors that once felt natural but are now too costly to tolerate. You must cultivate an intolerance for excuses, an intolerance for stagnation, an intolerance for the stories that once sheltered your insecurities. When the pain of staying the same becomes heavier than the pain of changing, your evolution becomes unstoppable. Make no mistake, Resistance is not your enemy. It is your instructor. It reveals every place within you where growth is required. It exposes the weak points so you can strengthen them. It forces you to decide who is in command, your fears or your future. And in that decisive moment, your destiny is shaped. My friend, understand this. Familiarity is one of the most deceptive prisons ever constructed. It comforts you with predictable patterns. It soothes you with routines that demand nothing extraordinary. It whispers, "Stay here. You know this place. You understand how to survive within these walls." But while familiarity protects your comfort, it also restricts your potential. The mind can never rise while chained to habits that keep it crawling. Every individual who seeks reinvention must confront the gravitational pull of the familiar self. This force will attempt to anchor you to the very identity you are striving to outgrow. It is not malicious. It is mechanical. The subconscious mind is designed to preserve what is known, even when what is known is unworthy of your destiny. Hill taught that all achievement begins with definiteness of purpose, and you cannot hold a clear purpose while clinging to an outdated identity. You must choose which version of yourself deserves your loyalty, the one shaped by past fears or the one shaped by future possibility. To outgrow your old identity, you must make peace with the fact that evolution feels like loss before it feels like gain. You will lose relationships that were sustained only by the smaller version of you. You will lose patterns that once gave you comfort. You will lose the illusion of certainty. But in exchange, you gain a life that reflects your highest potential, not your lowest expectations. The battle against familiarity is a battle against inertia, the natural tendency to remain unchanged unless acted upon by a greater force. That greater force must come from within you. It is your vision, your will, your desire to step into an expanded version of yourself, even when the path ahead is unclear. You must train your mind to view stagnation as unbearable, not merely undesirable, unbearable. For the moment stagnation becomes acceptable, evolution becomes optional, and nothing extraordinary can grow in a soul that has made peace with mediocrity. The truth is simple. Your future cannot unfold while your allegiance remains with your past. You must outgrow the familiar to become the formidable. You must walk away from who you were in order to walk toward who you are meant to be. Reinvention is the art of releasing the known to claim the possible. Intention over impulse, the mastery of your inner world. My friend, the greatest battle you will ever fight is not against the world, but against the impulses that rise within your own mind. Every human carries two forces, one that seeks elevation and one that seeks escape, one that moves with purpose and one that reacts without thought. The individual who masters intention masters destiny. The one who obeys impulse remains a servant to circumstance. Impulse is the language of the undisciplined self, the self that craves shortcuts, comfort, and immediate emotional relief. It convinces you to choose what soothes you today at the cost of what strengthens you tomorrow. Impulse is impatient. It demands action without awareness. It is the voice that urges you to cling to old patterns simply because they require no effort to repeat. Intention, on the other hand, is the architect of the evolved mind. It asks you to pause, to evaluate, to choose with clarity. It demands that every thought, every action, and every decision align with the person you are becoming, not the person you have been. Where impulse acts from memory, intention acts from vision. Where impulse reinforces your past, intention constructs your future. Hill often spoke of controlled attention, the discipline of directing the mind toward a single purpose. Intention is controlled attention in motion. It is the deliberate realignment of your energy toward growth rather than regression. Without intention, reinvention becomes impossible. Without it, the mind drifts back to familiar territory, no matter how deeply you desire change. You will feel resistance when you practice intention. Your old habits will push against your new direction. Your emotions will attempt to overthrow your commitments. The subconscious mind will tempt you to react rather than reflect. But every time you choose intention, you weaken the chains of your former self. To evolve, you must develop an intolerance for reactive living. You must refuse to be pulled by moods, insecurities, fears, or impulses that sabotage your progress. You must reach a point where the idea of living below your potential feels more uncomfortable than the discipline required to rise above it. Remember this truth. The future favors the intentional. Your results are not shaped by what you occasionally desire, but by what you consistently do on purpose. The individual who chooses intention over impulse becomes unstoppable, for they no longer build their life from emotion. They build it from principle. Your power begins the moment you decide to act from intention, even when impulse demands otherwise. Developing an intolerance for excuses and the rise of personal authority. My friend, reinvention demands something most people will never cultivate: an absolute intolerance for excuses. Excuses are the subtle thieves of destiny. They disguise themselves as reasonable explanations, but their purpose is singular: to protect the weaker version of you from the discomfort required to reach your greater self. An excuse is simply fear dressed in language that sounds intelligent. Hill taught that every individual carries the power of personal initiative, the ability to act independently of external influence. But excuses suffocate this power. They sedate your ambition. They convince you that delay is wisdom, that hesitation is caution, and that familiar patterns are safer than unfamiliar growth. Excuses are persuasive because they echo the voice of your old identity, the identity you must now outgrow. To evolve, you must hold yourself to a higher internal standard than the world ever could. You must look your patterns in the eye and say, "I no longer negotiate with limitations." This is the birth of personal authority, the moment you stop outsourcing your progress to circumstances, emotions, or the approval of others. Excuses comfort the mind, but corrode the spirit. Discipline strengthens the spirit, but discomforts the mind. You must choose which master you will serve. As long as excuses remain acceptable, stagnation remains inevitable. You cannot build a transformed life with the same logic that maintained your old one. Reinvention requires a new mental environment, one where excuses cannot survive, where avoidance is exposed, and where self-honesty becomes your daily ritual. This form of honesty is not harsh. It is liberating. It frees you from self-deception. It forces you to confront the gap between your intentions and your actions. And within that gap lies your power. When you close the gap, you rise. When you ignore it, you remain the same. You must begin to view stagnation as unbearable, not mildly frustrating, not disappointing, but incompatible with your identity. The moment you reach this level of internal intolerance, the universe shifts. Your subconscious aligns with your vision. Your habits begin to evolve. Your energy rises. You stop seeking the path of least resistance and start choosing the path of greatest transformation. Greatness does not come to those who tolerate their own excuses. It comes to those who dismantle them. My friend, the day you refuse to accept the old stories is the day your new life begins. Releasing the need for approval and embracing self-authorization. My friend, there is a silent barrier that stops more people than fear, resistance, or even failure itself: the craving for approval. The need to be validated, endorsed, or affirmed by others before taking a step toward one's own destiny has paralyzed more potential than any external obstacle. You must understand that no great achiever ever waited for permission. The world is not required to applaud your evolution before you begin. In truth, most people will not recognize your transformation until it is complete, and some will only recognize it once it benefits them. If you wait for universal approval, you will wait forever. Approval seeking is a remnant of the old identity, the identity that lived for acceptance, not advancement. As you evolve, you must release the belief that others should understand your vision before you act upon it. Hill taught that definiteness of purpose requires self-direction. the power to move decisively even when your surroundings remain uncertain. You cannot step into your purpose while still seeking reassurance from individuals who have not yet stepped into theirs. Reinvention demands self-authorization, the inner declaration that your vision is valid, your growth is necessary, and your expansion is non-negotiable. This shift in consciousness frees you from emotional dependency. It places your destiny back in your own hands, where it has always belonged. Consider this truth. People often resist your evolution not because they doubt your ability, but because your growth challenges their comfort. When you rise, you disrupt the equilibrium of the familiar. Your change forces others to confront their own stagnation, and so they may discourage your progress not from malice, but from the discomfort of witnessing their own inaction. But your life cannot be governed by the insecurities of others. To evolve, you must build a relationship with yourself that is stronger than your need for external validation. You must trust your intuition, your vision, your purpose, even when no one else has the capacity to see what you see. Do not dim your ambition to match someone else's limitations. Do not shrink your potential to soothe someone else's fears. Your approval must come from within. Your permission must come from within. Your momentum must be generated from a source deeper than public opinion. When you stop seeking to be understood, you free yourself to become unstoppable. This is the turning point of reinvention, when you no longer ask, "Will they approve?" but instead declare, "I am choosing this path because it is aligned with who I am becoming." And that declaration is the moment you truly begin to rise. The final crossing, acting upon your evolution with faith, courage, and repetition. My friend, we have arrived at the threshold, the place where knowledge must become action, where intention must become embodiment, and where the idea of your reinvention must now solidify into reality. You must understand a profound truth. All transformation is a decision long before it becomes an achievement. The mind accepts the new identity only when it is repeated, affirmed, and acted upon with unwavering persistence. You are standing in the doorway of the life you were meant to live. But this crossing requires that you release once and for all the chains of comfort, fear, familiarity, and hesitation. Reinvention is not for the faint of heart. It demands courage greater than your doubt, discipline stronger than your moods, and faith deeper than your uncertainty. Every great achievement in human history, as Hill taught, began with a definite decision followed by relentless action. And now it is your turn to decide. You must claim mastery over your inner world, your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, and your self-image. For the individual who does not govern their mind becomes governed by their past. The individual who does not direct their energy becomes directed by circumstance. The individual who does not consciously evolve remains trapped in cycles they were never meant to repeat. Remember this eternal principle. Your mind does not believe what is true. It believes what is repeated and acted upon. If you repeat your limitations, they will live. If you repeat your excuses, they will strengthen. But if you repeat your vision, your power, your intention, and your purpose, your subconscious will reshape your entire identity to match your new direction. The resistance you feel as you evolve is the final guardian of the threshold. It is here, at this crossing, that most individuals retreat and return to the familiar. They feel the discomfort of becoming and mistake it for a sign to stop, when in truth it is the sign that breakthrough is near. You must push through this resistance. You must lean into the unease. You must refuse the seductive pull of the old self calling you back to mediocrity. The individual who cannot tolerate stagnation becomes unstoppable. The individual who refuses to wait for approval becomes limitless. The individual who chooses intention over impulse becomes the architect of their destiny, and the individual who acts daily upon their evolution becomes the fulfilled expression of their potential. Your past no longer holds jurisdiction over the future you are building. The world is waiting for the version of you that you have only glimpsed in your highest moments. Now you must bring that version forward, consistently, boldly, deliberately. This is the call to rise. This is the call to act. This is the call to become. My friend, replay this message daily until its ideas are planted deeply in your subconscious mind. Repeat the affirmations until they become the language of your identity. And most importantly, act upon these principles. For the mind is transformed not by truth alone, but by what is repeated and lived out through persistent action. Your evolution begins anew each day. Choose it, declare it, live it.